Hello there. Okay, you've all heard the news. The church has hired a new director for communications. I know Quick has done, Greg Madsen has done a video on it. I have a slightly different take probably than he does. I haven't watched all of his video. And I want to talk about some other things as well. But just to get this one done, okay, Aaron Sherinian. This guy was, holy cow, he was the chief marketing officer for the United Nations. He has spoke at the World Economic Forum, you know, the Klaus Schwab place. His Instagram, and incidentally, I got to give a shout out to Eric Mutzos for sending me some texts on this the last couple of days. You know, Eric and I might have some disagreements about things, let's just say. But overall, good guy. And I'm glad he reached out to me on this one, just to let me know. I'd already heard it to some degree. You know, once you're in this kind of thing, you know, you just people let you know and you find out. And you're you know, searching other sites and doing things. But this Aaron Sherinian, on his Instagram post, he's all about, you know, the rainbow, the alphabet soup. He's so proud of his kids that do this. He has posts about congratulating transgender athletes and whatnot. And I want to get into this on another level. This transgender deal, but back to this guy. Okay, now in through the nose, out through the mouth. We have to take a deep breath on this. This is not mixed messaging. This is the message of the church, and we just have to get used to that. Now, others might, you know, try to schmooze it away and say, you know, there's this element, and people, you know, so we can look at Deseret Book, we can look at BYU, and we, you know, I've always said, don't look at them as in this special bubble, and that the brethren don't know. This is what is wanted. Now, think back, and not that President Benson was before my time, but I was younger. So I'm 66, but I remember him, and I remember the feel of that. And subsequent, I've loved his talk. Beware of Pride's probably one of my all-time favorite talks, right? And we always have Beware of Pride Month in June, and we read that talk. It's fun. Anyway, there was an element of church leadership that could not stand President Benson. Okay, now, if we could go back in time and we were the age that we were now, we could go back in time and President Benson was our prophet, we would just be like, you know, it'd be like basking in the summer, you know, sun, not too hot, not too cold, just right, you know, about 78 to 82 degrees with a slight breeze in the shade, enjoying a cool beverage. And realizing that we have a home, that we have a place of refuge within the church that we belong to. Now, there's a total difference, and many of you have pointed this out, but let's just, you know, go with me on this, that we have the gospel, the restored gospel of Jesus Christ, the restored doctrine of Jesus Christ. By restored, it was once here, lost, now it's back. We recognize keys and authority, all that. But then there's the political or the social side of the corporation of the church. It's a corporation, guys, and we have to get that in our heads. And a corporation has to act like a corporation and be part of the world, because the corporation is an entity that is subject to the corporate rules of the countries that they're in. So if we could go back in time, like I said, with the age that we're at, and we have President Benson as the prophet, we'd all be just like those that somewhat, like what's going on in this channel. Not that you agree with everything, I get that, but that, there's similar comments and things. We would be like, yeah, we know this is black and this is white. This is right, this is wrong. Very good, distinct lines, right? And this is the world, this is us, right? We're way part of the world, apart from the world, let's say. And then, but there was an element at that time that could not stand President Benson. So they would be feeling perhaps like we would be feeling now. You're active in the church, you go to the temple, you worship, you believe. The Book of Mormon is your go-to to get the spirit and the feeling of Christ. You love the Bible, you love the Doctrine and Covenants and Pearl of Great Price, and you study, and you're temple worthy, you're all that. But you might not have liked President Benson back in the day. Okay, well, we're that now in reverse. The church and the church leadership, this is the very indication of what I've been trying to say, that BYU is BYU. We have classes on Taylor Swift. We have classes on the inclusion and equity. What is it? Hey. AEI, whatever. Anyway, we have all that, and critical race theory, CRT, all that at BYU, and the alphabet soup, because that's what is wanted there by leadership. We have books and weird stuff that I think is weird at Deseret Book, because that is what is wanted there. We have articles in the Liahona that I just shake my head at, but that's what is wanted. Now we have the managing director for communications for the church that has this very leftist, I won't even say liberal, leftist leaning attitude. And we're like, oh, what is going on? Well, this is what is wanted. This is it. So now we get a chance to feel like those that didn't like President Benson back in the day, and that very conservative, black and white view of things, which I feel totally comfortable with. And we were basking in the light then, albeit we were a lot younger. Well, now we get to feel how they felt. You don't feel like the church represents you. You don't feel like it's a bastion of refuge to go to as a community, if you will. So you just have to deal with it. It doesn't mean the church isn't true. It doesn't mean prophets are fallen. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that your social, political, your very core of who you are isn't being represented by the social aspect or the community aspect of the church. So don't be looking for the church to satisfy that. You're going to have to be around like-minded people, go to like-minded channels, things like that, to feel like you're part of something. Otherwise, you can feel very alone. Now, this is going to be huge. This guy, Aaron Sherinian, is like, if I could think of a guy that was total opposite of how I feel about things in the world right now, this would be the guy. So the messaging, I'm sure we're going to get way more things on the jab, being good global citizens, emphasis on global, being inclusive of every gender bending thing. Speaking of that, I might come back to Aaron, but I don't know if any of you saw this study. This is just interesting. It's about gender dysphoria. This is from an article in Axios. Axios. You can Google it. Gender dysphoria diagnosis rose in nearly every U.S. state between 2018 and 2022 per a new definitive healthcare report. So this is the definitive healthcare report, and this is what they said. There's only this diagnosis of gender dysphoria fell only in South Dakota, which last year became the 6th state to restrict gender-affirming care for minors. Isn't that interesting? Why it matters. The nearly nationwide increases suggest growing demand for gender-affirming care, even amid efforts in many states to restrict access. Gender dysphoria is a form of psychological distress felt by people who believe their assigned sex fails to match their gender identity. Their assigned sex, isn't that interesting? Not all transgender people experience or are diagnosed with gender dysphoria. But such a diagnosis is often a first step when seeking gender-related mental health care or gender-affirming care in order to access treatment and activate insurance coverage. Okay, now there's a ton here. Let me skip to the part that I really wanted to cover and why I think this hire of Aaron Sherinian was part of this, because the leadership of the church is feels like Aaron will best represent how the church politically and socially wants to be accepted in the world at this time. So here it is. This is back to quoting Axios, but it says, okay, zoom in. Okay, so Virginia. Okay, so this is between the years 2018 and 2022. So Virginia for gender dysphoria is up 274%. Indiana, 247%. So Virginia, 274, Indiana, 247%. And Utah, coming in at third, up 193% increase. Now, what do you attribute that to? What do you attribute that to? We have increase in medication, drugs for all this stuff, counseling, all these things. And has it increased or decreased this? Now, some of you that are very left, or well, you probably wouldn't be watching this, you would go, well, this is a good sign because people are finding out who they really are. This is bullcrap. It's absolute BS. And I'm trying to be better with my choice of words here, but having this kind of increase, it leads to nothing more than more depression, more anxiety, more suicides, everything else. All this does. This leads to more of that. Statistically, that can be proven. This study is really, really interesting. And Utah is one of the highest, number 3, of increase and highest overall percentage-wise of people that suffer from this gender dysphoria. This is crazy. And this is the very core of the Abrahamic covenant and the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the very core. We always go back to the garden. Always go back to the garden when you want to find out how things are supposed to work, what the big plan is, what the big picture is for us humans, and our relationship with our Heavenly Father and His Son, Jesus Christ. It all goes back to the garden, and the garden is very distinct, very black and white. You have a man and you have a woman, and the purpose of this creation is to continue in creation. It's how it's supposed to be, and nature shows that. Everything proves that or points to that direction. So when you can bring a fog into it, when you can muddy the waters and have gender dysphoria, same-sex attraction, all this, what does it lead? It leads to having no root and no branch. It leads to not being part of the Abrahamic covenant, which is one of the key parts of the Abrahamic covenant is posterity. Posterity. All this leads against that. So this Aaron Sherinian, I have to keep looking, make sure. He couldn't be more. So like I was saying, he's congratulating people that are this and that. He's just celebrating his children, going to pride activities and doing all this. All this does is lead to more and more of the same, and that's leading away from our real purpose of being here on earth, to learning what it's like to be a little bit like God. And he wants us to learn what he has already learned. Now this is big. I have a thought. Sue and I have a lot of Christian friends that are, I would say, probably classified more as evangelical than anything, but Catholics and others, And you do too. You have, I have a lot of gay friends, well, I have a lot of Christian friends, kind of thing. So, but we seriously do. And the chosen community, most of them are Christian, but because it was sold at Deseret Book, it's okay for Mormons to we can kind of watch The Chosen like this. And if you're not watching, I have my hands over my eyes, but I'm kind of looking through. But because Deseret Book sells it, it's okay to watch The Chosen. Incidentally, we got an invite to go to The Chosen premiere of the 4th season. I can't remember if it's the first and second episodes or just the first episode in movie theater. And I cannot wait. I'll report on it, when that happens towards the end of the month, I believe. But anyway, having these friends, I really think that if our church, and I'm still calling it our church, was more black and white, more down the scriptural line of things. We don't have scriptures based on transgenderism and the alphabet soup and all this stuff. We don't have that. That's not in there. In fact, there's many scriptures pointing that's not a good thing, right? It's not a good thing. So we don't ignore those scriptures. We live by those. And I think if that was our case, we would have many missionary opportunities because we were a light on a hill. We're just, in my opinion, this projection that Aaron Sherinian and leadership that wants us to be global, inclusive, and all the things that disgust me, we just become another little flicker of light that the rest of the world is flickering. If you even want to call it that, it's hard to attract. The Book of Mormon will still do its thing, right? If somebody honestly reads it, they're going to join the church and ask God if it's true. They're going to go, wow, I want to be a part of wherever this book came from. This is amazing. That's still going to happen, and other things. So there's still going to be an element of it. But in my opinion, we're missing a huge opportunity with fellow human beings that want a good versus evil, that they want a right and a wrong. And all this other stuff just muddies the water, in my opinion. This is my opinion. So we're going to see what we've seen in the last few years that have kind of frustrated us, probably from the jab on, that just kind of being part of, like we feel like sometimes, are we watching CNN or are we watching General Conference? Are we being told that we're racist on CNN, or are we being told we're being racist? It kind of blends, and it's just this very leftist view. And those lines get crossed over and over again. Well, that's because we're living at a time when those of us that feel different are on the outside looking in, as far as having a community that feels like has our back. I don't feel like anything has my back other than you guys, right? And the people that we associate. And then my relationship with God and His Son, Jesus Christ. That is where I'm feeling we're not going anywhere. This really bugs me, how people leave because they don't feel like they're being represented. Why would you leave? This is where the fight begins. This is where the fun begins. This is where, you kind of have to stand on your own 2 feet. And it's awesome if you have a spouse like I do that's with you 1,000%, just right there with you. Sometimes you don't have that luxury or that blessing. But this is where things get exciting. And I feel like it's fulfilling prophecy. So I'm not afraid of it. I'm just recognizing it. This is the way it's going to be. And I feel like it's going to be like this till Jesus comes. I do. I feel like I'm going to be an outsider as far as the social aspect of the church and all that kind of stuff. I'll be an outsider until Jesus comes. That's how I feel, and I'm okay with that. Now, if you're a younger person and you have younger children, that can be very frustrating because having children like right in your home and in the community and doing things, you want to be a part of something, and that can be very frustrating. Let me do some more thought and thinking on that and kind of go back in time a little bit in my head. Of course, we have grandchildren that are going through it, and we talk to our kids all the time. I would say all but one of our children are pretty much feel the same way we do about things. But it's, I realize there's a time and a season, and there's a difference by having children. When they get hurt, you hurt even worse, right? If you're not actually having children in your home that you're raising at the time, you can kind of be a loose cannon like I am. And you go, oh, you don't like me? Well, good. There's one more person that, I don't need to say hi to. No, I'm just kidding. But it's not as big a deal the older you get. It's just a reality. At least it's been that way for me. Not that I want to be offensive, not want to be a jerk, but I'm not as concerned, okay? So for me, these are exciting times, but you got to go in with eyes wide open, ears to hear, heart to feel. You just have to know that this hiring of Aaron Sherinian is like, guys, this is the way it is. Don't get frustrated. Just realize you're not going to be represented by the church you belong to. But you still believe in the core, right? Priesthood keys, Book of Mormon, temple covenants, all those things. You just have to realize that you're not going to have a lot of buddies from the top, from the top, right? It's just not going to be that way. And that's exactly how the people felt back when President Benson was the prophet. Very conservative, very straight down the line. And we had other general authorities that were the same way, and I don't need to name them all, but you can, President Packer and others, that just boom, you heard it and you felt it and you went, dang, yeah, that was good. Well, there were a whole bunch of other people going, if I hear one more talk from that guy, I'm going to scream. But they were active in the church. By active, they were card-carrying member, let's just say. So now it's our turn to go through that. And it's been quite some time, I think, now that we have felt that way. And that's fine. It's fine. It's okay. It's okay. Don't panic. But recognize that BYU, Deseret Book, the church PR department, and the church, and then getting lectured about all these social things, That's gonna increase. It's gonna get worse. So I don't see any changes in the near future at all. So, and this is a very good indication of that. Now, some exciting news. I've heard this. Sue actually told me about this, and another thing I wanted to talk about. But the red heifer. News is, reports are that they do have a candidate, and they're looking for the Passover, to perform the sacrifice of the red heifer on the Mount of Olives. This is going to be, I just got goosebumps. This is going to be amazing. The red heifer they burn, they kill the animal and then burn it, the red heifer, and then the ashes are used for the cleansing of the priests, so that then they can begin to build the temple. So this is in preparation of building the temple that needs to be built. And with the climate, by climate, the feel of what's going on in Israel right now with Hamas and Gaza, and generally the Palestinian uprising, the Israeli government is more in a position now to put the hammer down on these terrorists, to allow more worship and freedom, not only on the Temple Mount, but many people don't realize that the Mount of Olives is West Bank. It's Judea, but it's the Jews can't even go there freely. They can hardly move around anywhere in Judea and Samaria. It's crazy. And so just right. So we all already know what they pretty much, they have like a 2-hour window once a week to go on the Temple Mount. They can't pray. They can't take the Torah with them. They can't do anything. They can just walk around. If they close their eyes, somebody will be on them like white on rice, right? So that, I think, there's an opportunity now for that to change by the IDF and the government of Israel cracking down and on anything that's against the Jewish nation right now, the Jews. And so it may not happen, I don't know, but to have a sacrifice on the Mount of Olives just a few months ago could have been very, very difficult. I think the window is open a little bit right now because of what happened in Gaza and the crackdown by the IDF to root out this discrimination against the Jews in their own country. So let's see what happens there. But the target date is Passover, which is perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. There's just so much similarity. You know, when we think of the garden, back to the garden again, and we think of the sacrifice where Elohim tells Jehovah to make coats of skin for Adam and Eve. Well, those skins had to come from an animal. That's introducing death. And death covers nakedness or covers sin. The death of Christ covers sin. It's so symbolic. And Passover is that time when the death of a red heifer could provide the cleansing for the Levite priests that have already been identified, the Kohanim, to perform not only the sacrifice and the ashes from that sacrifice, but then they could be cleansed in as it's spelled out. This would fulfill what Joseph Smith said, that there needs to be at least one more sacrifice to fulfill, to restore all things, because this is actually the sacrifice predated, and we learn this in the temple, predated Moses, right? This goes back to Adam and Eve. So that has to be restored as well. And this would be part, in my opinion, part of that restoration. So exciting news. We look forward to this Passover. If this happens, this could be huge. Now, it doesn't mean that the ashes couldn't be held for some time before they're used for that cleansing, but just having the ashes available could be huge. Now, okay, so I talked about that. I wanted to mention this. This is just kind of fun stuff here. But a huge ancient city has been found in the Amazon, hidden for thousands of years by lush vegetation. This discovery changes what we know about the history of people. This is from the BBC. The history of people living in the Amazon. The houses and plazas on the Upano area in eastern Ecuador were connected by an astounding network of roads and canals. The area lies in the shadow of a volcano that created rich local soils, but also may have led to the destruction of the society, the volcano itself, which is really interesting because not that this would be Book of Mormon lands, in my opinion, it wouldn't be, but we had those terrible events take place at the crucifixion of Christ, where cities were swallowed, burned, whirlwinds. All that is volcanic type of a event, a volcanic event. Okay, this is older than any other site. I'm quoting again. We know in the Amazon we have Eurocentric view of civilization. We have a Eurocentric view of civilization, but this shows we have to change our idea about what is culture and civilization. See, this goes totally along with Book of Mormon stuff. But not that this took place there, so don't freak out, but I'm just saying it's in the Americas, and it's this idea that, you know, everybody was more primitive than we are now, and it's always been this gradual up. No, these guys were sophisticated up here, and then through really wickedness, you go down like this, and then you start building back up. If it's the Book of Mormon cycle is what we call it. But anyway, back to this. It changes the way we see, I'm quoting again, we see the Amazonian cultures. Most people picture small groups, probably naked, living in huts, clearing land. This shows ancient people lived in complicated urban societies. We don't have a clue of what's happened. I'm not quoting anymore. I'm just saying it's so interesting how we think we're so smart, and we go to the universities and we look at these you know, the professors, and we listen to them, and oh, they have all these theories and ideas. We don't have a clue. The explanations of the so here's an interesting thing, and this does tie into the Book of Mormon. But you take the Great Pyramid of Giza, okay, and the footprint of the Great Pyramid of Giza is the same footprint of the Pyramid of the Sun in north of Mexico City in Teotihuacan. It's amazing. It's not as tall, the Mexico Step Pyramid, but the footprint's the same, and the alignment of the other pyramids. So it's like two like this, and then one off center, kind of like Orion's belt. Same in Giza. How does that happen? How does that happen? Okay, the city was built around 2,500 years ago, and people lived there for up to 1,000 years, according to archaeologists. It is difficult to accurately estimate how many people lived there at one time, but scientists say it is certainly in the 10,000s, if not the 100,000s. This is amazing. And with LIDAR, they're finding this in Guatemala, especially where they've done a lot of LIDAR. Way more, millions of people live there. You know, where before it was like, oh yeah, you know, maybe 20,000 people, you know, that's a big, no, huge civilizations. in the Mesoamerica part. So this is really, really exciting news in the Amazon. This LiDAR technology found 6,000 rectangular platforms measuring about 66 feet by 33 feet and 2 to 3 meters high. They were arranged in groups of 3 to 6 units around a plaza with a central platform. The scientists believe many were homes, but some were for ceremonial purposes. One complex at Killamope included a 459 foot by 131 foot platform. They were built by cutting into hills and creating platforms of earth on top. I mean, it just goes on. A network of straight roads and paths connected many of the platforms, including one that extended 16 miles. Cast up highways. I'm not saying this is Book of Mormon, guys. Don't get me. I know. I can guarantee you somebody's going to comment and say, so are you saying the Book of Mormon took place in the Amazon? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in the Americas, there were these huge civilizations over and over again. And to think of the Book of Mormon concentrating on one group, basically. I mean, we have the Mulekites. Mulek was one of the sons of King Zedekiah. We have that group, but we hardly know anything about them. We don't know how they got here. And we know they lost the language and didn't bring records with them. But we know the time period, Zedekiah, right around the time of Lehi. It's when the Babylonians took over. Zedekiah is really interesting because we have a record of him in the Old Testament. They actually, they killed his sons, other than Mulek, right? But they killed his sons and then they gouged his eyes out. So that would be the last thing he saw, because he was like a puppet of Babylon, Israelite, Jewish king, but a puppet. And the Babylonians had already infiltrated Jerusalem and Israel, but they were kind of getting along a little bit. Well, Zedekiah got a little cocky and he decided he was going to buck the system a little bit, and they took care of him. And then that's when they leveled the temple, leveled the city, and took captive the rest. So interesting stuff. But we have a little bit of Zedekiah, Mulek. We have the Jaredites, okay, that came over long before the Nephites, and we do know a little bit about them, and we know how they got here as far as their dishes. They're like little submarine things, and the 16 stones, 2 for each of the 8 ships. So we have some pretty good ideas on that. Many feel like they traveled through the Orient, Asia, and then came that way versus down, by the Red Sea like Lehi did. And the Olmec Society fits the time frame. And these are where you have the colossal heads, mostly in Mexico area. And these colossal heads have all kinds of different looking ethnicities. It's amazing. I've seen them. I've seen them firsthand, and not replicas. It's amazing. Sue and I went to that area a few times, actually, a couple times. But one time in particular where we focused on the Olmec, it was amazing to see that. And so if brother Jared and those guys traveled through, they would have seen all kinds of races and different kinds of people. And then, that could have been why these heads have all this different representation. And they're colossal, they're huge. It's really something. So anyway, there's other things on this. It's really cool. Archaeologists discover scoreboard for ancient Maya ball game. That's where the hoops on either side of a court that's like this. It's pretty cool. Ancient mummy found under rubbish dump. and mass grave found in ancient Peruvian city. So those are some other archaeological things. But LIDAR is really uncovering a lot of things. You know, Joseph Smith was told that there would be evidences come from the earth. This is, you know, you always think of digging and you think of, you know, obviously archaeology, but this LIDAR is really what's under the canopy and that is of the earth. And it's this evidence of just people, highly civilized, very, very fascinating. Okay, I think that is it for this video. I hope I conveyed how I feel about this Aaron Sherinian, and it's just something that we're gonna have to deal with, and don't think things are gonna get better. It's just gonna get more crazy. So God bless y'all. We're gonna make it. We're gonna stick together. Hang out with people that are maybe not just always like-minded, because that I don't like that. I like to be around all kinds of different people that have different gifts and abilities and different cultures and things like that. I'm not saying that, but when you need a place of refuge, you better be around people that are like-minded. Yeah, when you need that. Otherwise, you know, put a smile on your face and go to church and sit in the back, and if you feel compelled by the Spirit to say something, say it. Otherwise, keep your mouth shut and keep your head low. Love y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye.